Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about Justice League. You know, there are a number of things that people say which are very petty, and sometimes I'm amazed at the people who are saying these things because these people are well versed in what they're supposed to be saying about a movie, and it's really astonishing to see them say these petty things. Okay, so there were some guys in film. I was watching their video, and they were talking about flaws in Justice League, and one of them, they tried to poke fun at the Russian family, Bozhornov, I think is the name of the place, Bozhornov family that lives there in Russia, near to a abandoned nuclear silo plant. And they were saying that this family, there was no, they didn't serve the story well, and that they were one-dimensional, and that what was their purpose? They could have been out of the story, and so on and so on and so on. And we went to tongue on them. You know, what was the purpose of flashing back to them and all of this stuff. So, let's go through it. Because I didn't expect people who are supposedly in film school to be that shallow in thinking. But it is what it is. And I'm seeing that a lot with people who are supposedly in film school. I'm like, what are they teaching you in film school? And then they talk about people who are not versed in film. You know, how, you know, they see merits in these things, but they really don't know about film. And I'm like, God damn. Basically, their argument was that these people are not relatable. Don't make us care about them because there's no relationships between them. And I'm like, I don't know what movie you watched, buddy, but when you're watching film, once again, like I said before, you must understand plot. And these are just fundamental things about film. Like, you don't even have to be in film school to know this. It's kind of intuitive. As you watch a film movie, you'll be able to see how the plot is interwoven. And these guys continually go along the traditional balletic way of telling stories. They start, well, these people, you have to see them build relationships with one another, and you must follow the relationship as it evolves. And I'm like, who taught you film? Like, what are you going to film school for? You might as well have just gone and sell drugs, because the reasoning behind what you're saying is just so naive and stupid. Like, do you think balletic plots are the only plots in the universe? Like, every time I listen to these moronic reasonings, oh, we need to have them develop relationships and we need to follow them along. Like what happened in Marvel when there was this big Age of Ultron. For all they said about Age of Ultron, we saw people and their relationships between them and their children, and we were caring about them. And I'm thinking, I don't even remember what Age of Ultron was about, but nonetheless, whatever. I did watch the movie. I just don't remember what it's about. So forgettable. But nonetheless, these people go on, and you can tell they're Marvel fans. Usually they're Marvel fans. So I'm thinking to myself, the prevailing winds are there, so you're going to flow with the prevailing winds. I get you. But God damn it, man. Of all the points you would make, you couldn't see what was going on in this interwoven plot, and that there are simultaneous things happening at once. Like you can't, like that can't process in your mind. This is so simple. I mean, and the storyline for this family is also simple, which is what I like. The first time we were introduced to this family is coming off of Steppenwolf attacking Atlantis and Aquaman trying to defend Atlantis. And he's speaking to Mera, and Mera's giving him the reason why he should not only embrace his mother, who he thought abandoned him, but also take up the responsibility that she would have had to pursue this monster who is considered Steppenwolf by Mera. Steppenwolf is considered a monster by him, and make sure that the mother box is retrieved and that he is stopped. Particularly, she said, stop him. So after that discussion, we break to here. This scene is in Bozhornov, we later learn, Russia. And we learn about the families later on. We keep on learning about the family there that we see more and more. But when we are first introduced to this family, it is really an introduction to where Steppenwolf really is. And we see this particular facility, this particular area, and we realize a family lives in there. And there's some apartments in the area. It's somewhat desolate, it's somewhat barren. It's on the outskirts of almost normal society. And there's this family making do with the very little that they have. And if you're very observant, or you've watched the film a number of times, you realize they have very little. I mean, their kitchen is their living room, is their bedroom. Like, this little girl, she's making herself at home on a bed, right? But you can see that right next door to that is a table where they eat. I am assuming that's the kitchen. And right next to there, there's a sink here. There's some drawers. I don't think they even have a television. They have an old radio. They make it homey and cozy, but you can tell they're making much with very little, okay? But you can tell it's home. On further inspection, we hear the radio disrupt, etc. We see that there's something that happens that disturbs their comfort. And the little girl goes to look, and you can see everybody that there's a tension, and you can hear the music and everything. The little girl goes to the window, and in the window she's seeing this, like almost a plague of locusts coming out of the nuclear silo plant. And then she's horrified when one of those locusts just shows up on the windowsill, and she takes off from the window, which is very smart. And I was shocked, and the whole cinema was shocked by that. It reminded me of BVS, that moment when you just feel that intense, you get this intense scare when this bat thing comes out of this tomb that Batman's having in his dream. And that was just petrifying. And this is one of those horrific moments as well, where it goes BAM! And you're like, but your heart jumps, everything skips, your stomach almost comes out in your mouth. Great scene. But more importantly, it builds this rising tension with this family. As you see the husband go for the gun, the little girl dives underneath the table with her mother. The father gets the gun. He's telling everybody to hide. Okay? And the intense fear that you feel in this moment reminds me of the Chernobyl incidents with the nuclear silo plants, but it also recalls to my attention the war in Bosnia, the genocide that happened there, how families must have felt. Like, I don't know, because I don't know how many people are socially conscious out here. All right. I'm thinking also of when Russia just went in and just went into Ukraine and just seized a town and a village and called it their own. You know what I'm saying? And just killed a whole bunch of people in there. I'm thinking that's how the people felt. This fear, this tension. It was guttural. It was organic. And that fear, we see this mother clutching this little girl. The boy is dove underneath the table with them. The father's the only one out there with a gun. I mean, if you don't feel the relationship of this family to each other, even the nonverbals, and I always emphasize on the nonverbals. In the Zack Snyder film, he does not just utilize the verbals. You don't have to hear the parents say to the children, I love you, or, oh God, where's my daughter, where's my son? I don't need the verbals. You can be cued by nonverbal gestures, and the beauty of Zack Snyder film is the nonverbal gestures. And we are left in a panic state. What is happening to this family? And then we are segued immediately into the tribe of locusts heading back to the nuclear silo, and we are introduced to where Steppenwolf's lair is. And you are left in suspense. As they say, it's almost like they've left it to the wind. I forgot what's the name of the word they use. You guys know what I'm talking about. Where you're left in suspense. What has happened to this family? They're obviously under clear and present threat. Why that is key is because when we think about the story of Justice League, it is about Bruce Wayne recruiting a team of people of special abilities to deal with an oncoming threat. Threat. So the fact that we see this family under threat emphasizes the alien threat around Earth. It definitely summarizes succinctly the threat that the world faces, starting with these people in Bajornov. That's the relevance of the family in this story. And we follow them throughout the story. Because while other things are happening in other places of the world with the Justice League, and they're recruiting, and they're having to deal with Steppenwolf, blah, 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 things are happening to this family as well. And so we're going to follow this family and find out what's going on with them while those other incidents are happening. So we're left in suspense. The first time we see this family, and once we reach this moment with this little child clutched by her mother, hiding under a table. The father's the only one with the weapon, and he's wondering what to do with this oncoming threat. We are left in suspense, angst, and anxiety. What has happened to that family? And we will be wondering about that family as we keep on seeing. We go to another scene where we are dealing with the Justice League and what they're doing about Steppenwolf after Steppenwolf has gotten the second mother box from Atlantis. And we find out that Batman and Wonder Woman, they had difficulty recruiting Cyborg, they had difficulty recruiting Aquaman. Flash had jumped on board. Now we see them being called by Commissioner Gordon, and then Cyborg joins them because his father has been kidnapped. And then they have this whole big fight scene underground and all of that. And that forces Cyborg to get the mother box. And then we come back to what's happening in time in Bajornov. And we realize that the parademons, they've surrounded the house. But you will notice that the windows of the house are now boarded up. They're blocked. And the parademons are going all around the house because they can smell fear in there, but they're curious. They don't know exactly what's going on. They smell fear, but they don't know what's going on. So they're just looking around, kind of curious around the house. Okay? What's happening inside the house? The family's boarding it up. And while they're boarding it up, the wife, she speaks to the husband, and he tries to calm her down, saying somebody will come and meet us. And they were thinking of whether to run or whether to stay put. And they were like, you know what? The husband says, no, we stay put. And she's like, what happens if we run out of food? What happens if we run? Because they're under siege, kind of like, but they don't want the parademons to know they're there. Like, apparently the parademons don't realize they're there, that there's real people inside the house for some reason. I don't know why. But they can't see them, so they're like, you can't see me? I'm not here. It's kind of a peekaboo thing. It's kind of funny. I question it myself, but nonetheless, they're there. And there's this tension, but yet at the same time, very important point that stresses with this family as we watch the wife and the husband and the boy and the little girl, who's still hiding under the table, by the way, when we last saw her. She's frozen under that table, boy. Is that we learn that the husband has the hope, which is the key point in this movie, the hope that someone will come and rescue them. He's hopeful in spite of it. And it reminds me again, like I said before, for those people who don't know, Zack Snyder uses certain contexts and themes because he's actually reflecting something that actually happened in the real world. People under siege. This has happened in the Congo. There's nobody, it doesn't make big news, but Yugoslavia, Serbia, It's interesting that you have the name Bajornov because it kind of reminds us of Bosnia, etc., etc., etc. So it's just interesting to see these people. Now we're going to learn more and more about these people in this story. But it's just curious, the little girl, she finally crawls out from underneath the table. And what she get? Bug spray, because she's seen it's a bug. It looks like something like a bug. So she pulls out bug spray, and that gives her a little comfort. It gives her a little comfort. And again, these are visual cues. This stuff is not written in English at all. It's just visual cues. And that's a Zack Snyder trait. So a lot of people are saying, well, this is Joss Whedon, shoot this. And I was like, no, Joss Whedon did not shoot this. Yes, it's funny, but that's a Zack Snyder moment. All right? It was all Zack Snyder. And Joss Whedon did do some parts of this movie along with Zack. Don't get it wrong. But that's another story for another day. So when we get back to the Justice League and we're hearing about them, they about to get kicked by Superman, they finally get the mother box, they argue about Superman, all of that's going on. They investigate and they're doing research. And while they're doing research, Cyborg is able to locate where Steppenwolf actually is in Bajornov. And there are people actually located there. And those people live in this abandoned village near to this nuclear silo. And it's interesting what Aquaman helps us to realize, because Flash is like, I don't know, what would people be doing living there? He's like, these people got kicked out of everywhere else, so they had nowhere to go. You know what I'm saying? Aquaman knows about that, right? And so we learn a little bit more about the people, why they're in these extreme conditions. And the other thing we learn about them, and there's a reason why we're following a specific family all the time. Why would we follow a specific family? We follow a specific family for the very reason that these critics and these people talk against it, the detractors. We are building a relationship with these people. The small moments of time we are with them, we're starting to feel their angst, we're starting to feel their fear, and we're also learning about them now that they had no other option but to live out there in the middle of nowhere. And the other thing we learn is that they're the closest to the threat. Like the impending danger is first going to affect them. That's what we learn. And so we learned that Batman and they're trying to get across there. It's only a couple of hours. Cyborg says, you know what, I can get that ship there. I'll prime them up. We'll make sure we get there in time. And then we see them go off to Bajornov, because that's where Steppenwolf is. That's where the mother boxes is. That's where they need to go. They lost their mother box and everything at this time to Steppenwolf. So they're on their way. And when they're on their way, we go back to this family. Because you have to understand, this family is important to the story. It's not a major character in the story. It's a minor character in the story, but it's an important character in the story. Because almost all the Zack Snyder films we've had to see the world and how the world sees this. Every single Zack Snyder film, including the ones he produced. Whether it's Suicide Squad, we've seen the world. We've seen people abandoning the city of Midway City. We've seen people being killed. We've seen army going in, they're being killed. We've seen humanity and how they react to things on different levels. We've seen humanity in terms of governance. We've seen humanity in terms of the average everyday people. We've seen humanity in terms of its military presence and its defense, right? Same thing for Man of Steel. Same thing for BVS. And this is not different. The only difference here with this one is that we don't see so much of military presence of humanity, and we don't see so much of a governance presence of humanity. We see instead this new governance presence of humanity, which is these metahumans, these human beings with special abilities, and then some who are not even human beings, right? So we have Cyborg, he's human-ish, mostly machine if you look at him. And we'll talk about more about Cyborg and these ancillary characters, these new characters, Cyborg, Aquaman, and the Flash in another video. But what I really want to show you guys is I want to show you that now we're looking at this almost a special team of humans with special abilities joining forces to deal with this threat. So we still see humans in there. We see guys like Commissioner Gordon. We see, of course, Lois Lane, Alfred, Bruce Wayne, Martha Kent. We see humans, but we don't see them in a governance capacity. This time, the governance capacity here is going to be the humans of the Flash, the humans of Cyborg, okay, and Batman. That's the governance capacity. We got non-humans such as Aquaman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. However, Aquaman is a half-breed. So, Aquaman's actually part human. But he's not fully human, right? Everybody else is fully, except for Cyborg. Cyborg's not fully human either. So it's really Flash and Batman if you look at it. But we still get this human perspective from a civilian perspective. And this is what I love the global sort of spans of this thing as well. That's what you also see. But the threat is not just to humans. It's a global threat. It's to the Atlanteans. It's to the Amazonians as well. All right? It's all who share the planet, which I find very interesting again. Very all-encompassing. And so we've seen governance, but we've seen governance from different perspectives. Like, for instance, we've seen governance from the Atlantean perspective. We've seen governance from the gods' perspectives. We've seen governance from the Amazonian perspective. We've seen governance from the governors of men. We saw the kings out there fighting from the tribes of men, the Mongolian king, the Earth King, whoever he may be. They say they're inferring as King Arthur. I don't know. or there's the tribes of men that was in the flashback scene. We even seen governance from creatures from other worlds, such as Green Lantern, right? So it's very all encompassing in this respect when we talk about Earth. And so it's very interesting that when we look back at this family here, we're looking at them from a civilian perspective, not from a governance perspective, like other Zack Snyder films. This Zack Snyder film, in this case, encompasses governance beyond just humanity to other coexisters of Earth in this particular depiction of the world. So, back to this family. So we see there, now, this family, they're anticipating someone coming. You remember the guy said he was hopeful for someone to come, and he hears something. He hears a noise. And then when he goes to his window, he realizes that the parademons are leaving. And he actually makes the statement. He's still like, oh, they're leaving. And you can see he's still afraid. You can see how big-eyed he is, googly-eyed. And then, boom, here comes this terraforming thing tumbling towards them. So, he gets the command when the little girl says, Papa, he's like, let's run for your life. Because they're in a hiking state all the way through, right? And they run for their life. And if you look in the background, you can see a whole bunch of people also running, and they're jumping in their cars and they're getting out of there. And he gets in the old truck, and everybody's in their old truck, and they split, man. They get out of Dodge. And they watch their home just go into smithereens with this thing. This thing devours their home and keeps on coming. And they run for it. And then again, we're left in suspense, like, oh, what happened to them, right? Because we're coming to them, and then we're disappearing, we're coming to them. All right. But there is relevance, and the timelines will mesh, and also the time and space will mesh in a minute. So we learned about these families. We learned what motivated the Justice League to get across to Bajornov so quickly was because of these people who were settled there, who would first be attacked by Steppenwolf's forces and the Mother Boxes. And it seems like they're too late, because this family, they're getting out of it. Don't get me wrong, but some of them probably got licked up by, and some of them are running like crazy, and some of them got in their vehicles and they're out of there. So they're running for their lives. And it's not like these people don't know about that. It's like they've been nomads. They've been kicked out of everywhere else. So it's not like they don't know how to just get out of it. You can get that feeling, right? But nonetheless, that's just me interpolating some other things. So you don't need to go with that, okay? Let's just go with what the movie's saying. So anyway, they're getting out of it. We flash back to the League. This time Batman needs help because he's attracted all the parademons, sending out a signal. He's attracted all the parademons to him. But here's the downside to it. He can't handle all those parademons. They're going to kill him. And Wonder Woman says that in 3 minutes. And so the League goes, they defend him. They reach Steppenwolf. Wonder Woman and Aquaman take on Steppenwolf, while Batman is protecting Cyborg with the Flash, trying to take down the parademons and stuff. And then Alfred now. Of course, this is the family here running away, and you can see the terraforming stuff from the Mother Boxes terraforming the land as they split, and you can see they're scared. And obviously, the purpose of the family in this movie is to show you the fear of mankind to this invasion. All right, this is the reason why we had all these hate crimes against and the xenophobia towards the Islamic people by the MAGA. This is why the terrorists were trying to blow up civilization and send it back to the Dark Ages, because they were thinking the sins of mankind brought on this plague of aliens. Okay, this is what Batman's fears were of in BVS. This is what the robber was saying to Batman. You see what I'm saying? Now we're seeing it actualize, and the fear of people and the response of people to it. And that's what's being captured here. Okay? And it's absolutely relevant to the story. And of course, we are invested in these characters because it constantly keep you on a high note. You're like scared out of you're scared shitless. Are they going to get killed? Are they going to get killed? I want to know. They're splitting out of there. I hope they live. And you just never know with a Zack Snyder film. They could die, or some of them could die. You just never know. So they're in the middle of the heart of battle, the superheroes and so on, and they're fighting Steppenwolf and stuff. And then Alfred goes and signals to Bruce that, hey man, I got some more bad news. And the bad news is that stuff that's spreading from inside of where you guys are fighting, it's spreading for miles. And the people going east trying to get away from it, they're not going to make it. They're going to die. So Batman hears that. He then employs Barry Allen. He says, Barry, listen, man, I got a job for you. You need to go take a walk. And Barry Allen speeds out of there. And that is where the superheroes and the humans intersect. This was the purpose behind setting up this family, because you wanted to be invested in them so that when the superhero comes and saves them, it has meaning to it. Not only that, but then Superman comes at the right time when all hope seems to be gone because the superheroes are losing their battle against Steppenwolf. And Superman comes on the scene. He subdues Steppenwolf for the moment, and then he asks Batman how he can help him because he shows up at the right time. And while Batman is telling him what he needs to do, Superman's hearing the same family. It's the little girl that said Papa. It's the little girl that said, ah, when the parademon came. That's just a replay of that scene that you saw. Superman's hearing it, and he's also hearing thousands of other families, and he realizes there's so many people who need to be saved at this point in time. And he's like, civilians. And then Batman says, well, I sent out the Flash today. And he's like, nah, that's not enough. I need to go. So he goes off to save the civilians. So it's Superman and the Flash saving civilians, while Wonder Woman, Batman, Cyborg, and Aquaman, they try to save the day at the site. Wonder Woman and Aquaman are fighting off Steppenwolf, and they're starting to do a pretty good job, especially Aquaman. He's starting to hold his own against Steppenwolf, while Cyborg is trying to break open those mother boxes, separate them. And Batman's trying to protect Cyborg at the same time, right? And so we get back to the family now. While all that's going on, this family, they're trying to get out of Dodge. Along with a number of other families. They're trying to run. But bad news for this family, man. They started to run out of gas. So they're running out of gas. And now the Jeep is stopped. And this terraforming thing's coming behind them. And their ass is grass, right? And you can see the concern on their faces. The brother, the sister. You saw the father and the mother. And they all pure adrenaline. And the little girl, she's just watching now. She's like, oh my God. So all the hope seems to be gone. And remember, the key in this movie is always about hope, okay? When hope seems to be lost, hey, then it can be found. And so in this case, Flash and Superman catches up with Flash. You can see again all the terraforming thing happening here. And the terraforming line is coming. They have outrun it. Superman runs to his right. He says, I'm going right. You take left. Okay? So Superman speeds off to the right. And the Flash speeds off to his left. And the Flash speeds up with the family. And here's the interesting thing. If you pay attention here, well, you can't see it right now, but the terraforming thing is right behind them. The little girl's watching the terraforming. First, she was scared by the Flash when he popped up. He was like, hey, don't be afraid of me. Don't be afraid of me. Hold on. Because he didn't know how. She doesn't speak English. She don't speak English. I don't understand it. He don't speak Russian, right? So it's really funny when she holds on to the thing. He says, hold on here. And then he just pushes that shit out of there. I mean, he just gets out of there, way out the way. Like, I don't know how many hundreds of miles he went. But, I mean, friggin' the Flash is fast, man. He just got out of there. And he pushes the van to safety, way out of the way. All right. And then we see Superman doing his thing. Superman doesn't move as fast as the Flash, but apparently he got everybody into a building. He must have snatched up everybody. You know, and he just moved really, really fast. Snatched up all those people and put them inside of a building. And you see him moving them away. I heard one guy say that he didn't see anybody in the building. I think you see people in that building. My resolution is not that great, but you can tell there's a person here, a person here, a person here, a person here, and a person there, and so on. So I'm sure there's a whole bunch of people inside that building that Superman was able to grab up in time. And I don't think those people ran into the building. I definitely don't think so. And Superman rips the building up from its foundation, which is kind of crazy. And he's carrying that building away, man. The only way that Superman can do it, you know. And so what we see now is the superhero greeting mankind. It's almost like the Flash has come out of the shadows. And for the first time, we see him as a superhero greeting civilians. And it's really awesome to see. So we know Superman did that in the beginning of the movie. We see Wonder Woman do it at the end of the movie. But we also see the Flash do it. All right? And this is to someone who is like an outsider, like himself, which is really cool. So I thought that was really awesome. And that's the intersection. That's the payoff of this story. It's not trying to tell you an overbearing story because this is a minor part of the movie, but it's important that it's important for you to understand how important it is to mankind. That's what this family represents. And so you see the little girl waving to the Flash. She's a little confused, and this reminds me back of Superman 1978, Superman 1981, was it, or 2? I can't remember. Where Superman would help people and they would still be confused about what's happening, but they're just kind of happy. And you can see this father here, he's like, his eyes are open wide, and the mother here over here, and the little boy still watching, kind of confused what just happened. But it's really awesome. All right? And we're not done with the family. They carry the family all the way to the end, and they transition into it. And the nice thing about it is, after the superheroes have defeated it, the Steppenwolf, and the world starts to change, the terraforming changes into flowers and basically Wiccan kind of stuff, fairy tale-ish kind of stuff. And I would not forget what Ben Affleck said about Joss Whedon spreading his fairy dust. If you look carefully at some of, not all of them, but some of the scenes that Joss Whedon shot, you'll actually see little specks of like almost fairy dust looking things, circular stuff floating around. And you go looking at the Superman interview, you see these little circular things floating around. When you see Wonder Woman and Superman after the clash and stuff, you see these little circle things floating around. When you see Superman and Wonder Woman, Batman, and they're talking about, Superman's talking about, I'm glad I didn't miss this. You see those little circular things floating around. And all it means is special effects was influenced in some ways, I think, by Joss Whedon. I think he gave that Wiccan feel at the end. I don't think it was Zack. I think Zack might, I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm just guessing here. I don't know. But this Wiccan-like looking feel is what we get here with these really very Wiccan-y, very colorful, very Wiccan style stuff, and Ben Affleck talks about the fairy dust stuff. So I would guess that fairies, Wiccan, Wicca, get it? So that's cool. I'm not mad at it. I mean, it's a pagan centric, and there's an actual following of people called pagans out there in Europe, and it's kind of pagan centric there, and that's what the kind of feel I get, because I don't remember Zack Snyder doing something like that. I don't see him coming from that perspective. So I think that's Whedon right there. But it's really nice because you see the family now relax and they're looking at this thing. It's kind of like a fairy tale ending. And you see the father on top of the truck, and he's kind of relaxed now. Back to what they were when they were family inside a home. They don't have a home anymore, but they're kind of happy and relaxed and watching everything. And that sort of segues into Clark Kent and they getting back their home with Bruce Wayne, things working out for Barry Allen. He gets into forensics, and Cyborg being kind of more united with his father as he kind of evolves, and Aquaman going back home and that kind of stuff. Bruce Wayne being hopeful. So there's a transition. You feel the tone transition there and changing tone as things kind of relax down. They're not as stressful and strained. So that's what this family helps to do. Family's usually used as a segue in this movie, but they also give you the human perspective. So it's more of a segue than anything else. So it's kind of like, just like a comic book movie. It's like a comic book, in that, meanwhile, while the superheroes are fighting Steppenwolf, this is what's happening to the family over here. It's kind of like that. All right, it's not supposed to be super deep, but it also gives you the human perspective. And it also encapsulates the fear of human beings. This is what they were afraid would happen. So that's basically what you're following. And of course, what keeps you invested in this family is you're asking yourself, because it always ends on a suspenseful note. It's like, oh my God, what happened to them? And then we're going back to the superheroes already, but what happened to the family? So, okay, I'll tell you what happened to the family. And they tell you in little segments, and they keep you kind of always suspenseful with them. And they carry you all the way to the end, where it's relaxed and everything's kind of resolved, and the family, I mean, they don't have no home or nothing, but they're alive, you know what I'm saying? And the world seemed to have changed, and they're happy about it. And they also met the people, they met one or two of the people at least, who made that happen. You remember, this father, he was hopeful that somebody would help them, which was interesting. I mean, he was hopeful. And I guess that's what keeps these guys going. And so because of his hope, and you can tell he was the head of the home, and he was the protector of the home, because he was the guy that had the gun and everything. Because of that, we see this relaxed. And you know what's nice about it too? I'm glad that they used a Russian family, of all people. I'm glad that Zack used a Russian family. So I thought it was just really awesome They use a Russian family and the hopefulness, and everything about it was interesting. So I wanted to share that with you guys. This is what this purpose of this family in this movie was for. It was to help us see the fears and to make it palpable and real. But there are also other added elements where it's all about the motivation for the superheroes as well. Saving life, preserving life, any life. And then learning that this family was an outsider, that they were kicked out of everywhere. This is the purpose of justice. Again, if you go and you watch at Old Bailey, on top of it, it's talking about protecting the poor, the orphans, and bringing the wrongdoer to justice. And that's what this movie epitomizes. And so that's why I like it. This is also fitting in with the theme of justice, what justice is about. This is why they're called the Justice League. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave your comments in the comment section below that on your views of the significance of this family. I think it was pivotal to the end point or the end story of this movie, in that we needed to see that humanity was actually being saved, and especially the ones who were in immediate danger of the disaster. And I thought they connected us to the family quite well, because we were invested in the family because of the suspenseful nature of it, because of the fact that we didn't know everything was resolved with them, and we didn't know how things were going to work out. You know, it's more of a cliffhanger after cliffhanger with them. You know what I'm saying? And how was that going to be resolved? And this is why we needed the superheroes. So we found out why the superheroes were necessary in that case, and I thought it was just wonderfully done. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. You guys have a great one.